have always been the most striking examples of Ottoman architecture. When speaking of the Ottoman structures in Istanbul, the first buildings that come to mind are the mosques. In fact, one of the first images that come to mind when speaking of Istanbul is the domed mosques with minarets decorating the skyline of the city. However, this image, therefore the aesthetic and structural quality that the Ottoman architecture has reached in Istanbul, is the result of the development of this building type in other cities before Istanbul. In the previous sections, we mentioned that although reverse T-type structures are called mosques today, they were actually not mosques but zawiyas. Therefore, when examining the evolution of the Ottoman mosques, we will exclude this plan type and consider two main trends: single-domed plan type and multi-column or great mosque plan type. The oldest Ottoman mosques were usually covered with a single small dome, using local construction techniques. A portico called the latecomers' place, especially in the Ottoman territory, was also added to these mosques. Hacı Özbek Mosque in İznik is the first known example of this plan type. İznik Green Mosque, commissioned by Çandarlı Halil Pasha and built by an architect called Hacı Musa, is a slightly more advanced version of this type. The mosque, commissioned by Yıldırım Bayezid in Mudurnu in 1382, is an ambitious experiment with a dome measuring 22.5 meters in diameter. In these single-domed early Ottoman mosques, it is aimed to enlarge the size of the dome so that a larger community can be gathered in a single space. The dome has a structural significance rather than an aesthetic quality. The dome is kept low and carried directly on the walls of the structure, not on the columns. The transition from a square-shaped slab structure to a circle-shaped dome is provided either by Turkish triangles, pendentives, or squinches. To cover the portico of the latecomers' place, sometimes small domes, sometimes cross or barrel walls, sometimes both are used. On the other hand, Ottomans adopted the multi-columned mosque type, the examples of which can be seen in other principalities and in many corners of Anatolia, dating back to the 12th century. In fact, the first royal mosques were built according to this plan. Bursa Great Mosque, commissioned by Yıldırım Bayezid in 1399, is the most important and large-scale example of this type in Western Anatolia. A total of 20 equal-sized domes, placed in a 4x5 scheme, are carried on walls and 12 large feet. The dome in front of the mihrab is higher and, like the single dome in front of the mihrab seen frequently in early Islamic mosques, it carries a symbolic meaning by pointing to the Qibla. There is no portico or latecomers' place on the entrance facade, but there are minarets on both ends of this facade. Another example of the same type is the Old Mosque in Edirne. This mosque, started by Süleyman Çelebi but completed in 1414 by his brother Mehmet I, who ascended the throne after the interregnum, is covered by 9 equal-sized domes carried on 4 feet on a 3x3 modular scheme. There is also a latecomers' place in this structure. There was only one minaret in the original structure, but later another minaret with 2 balconies was added by Murat II. These two plan types, single-domed mosque and multi-columned mosque, raced for a while in the Ottoman geography, and by the mid-15th century, they were combined in Edirne Üç Şerefeli Mosque, a pioneer structure that would become a prototype for the subsequent Ottoman mosques. Üç Şerefeli, commissioned by Murat II in Edirne between 1437 and 1447, was both like a multi-columned mosque with smaller domes covering side naves, and was also reminiscent of single-domed mosque with its high dome covering a very large area in front of the mihrab. In fact, it was different from both types. The dome, measuring 24 meters in diameter and sitting on a hexagonal baldachin, was not carried on the walls, but on 6 feet, 2 freestanding and the other 4 hidden in the walls. In this respect, it was distinguished from the single-domed mosques. On the other side, the number of carrier feet in the prayer hall was only 2, and it was very close to realize the aim of creating an uninterrupted place of worship. Moreover, the dome did not only point to the Qibla, but those who step inside the main entrance found themselves directly under it. Üç Şerefeli was also the very first Ottoman mosque with a courtyard. The portico that surrounds the ablution fountain in the middle form a semi-open space adjacent to the mosque. This element became an indispensable feature for the many subsequent Ottoman mosques. In addition, the cut stone masonry, similar to Bursa Green Mosque, is a prominent feature that would continue in the subsequent royal mosques. Last but not least, a total of 4 minarets, one of which has 3 balconies, lending its name to the structure, are the antecedents of multi-minaret application unique to the royal mosques commissioned by the sultans. You can now switch to timeline travel tool and explore Bursa Alaaddin Mosque as an example of single-domed mosques, Edirne Old Mosque as an example of multi-columned mosques, and then Edirne Üç Şerefeli Mosque, pioneering the development of Ottoman mosques in Istanbul.